This an emergency, wait, you never heard of me, Vinnie Cooper, the burden since 23, I was certain.
On July 1st, the English Mixed Martial Arts Association kicked off the first ever Four Nations tournament. Top prospects from England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales competed against one another, and here on AMI Hour we've had a look at all of the action, and here are the top prospects from the Four Nations Amateur MMA Tournament 2022. Chanel Dyer. Gold medalist in the women's flyweight division, 21-year-old Chanel Dyer wanted to keep fights standing and mix in her elite and credentialed stand-up game, and did that to perfection. She has won the Cage Warriors Academy Southeast strawweight and flyweight belts, and that experience shined through at the Four Nations, where she was able to use her kicks to land at distance and put together some stiff combos with her hands to take out opponents. With the women's pro ranks being a little thin at the moment, Chanel could have turned pro earlier and tried her hand, but sticking at the amateur level, she's been able to hone her craft and ensure that she's able to make that switch and be at the top level right away. Jack Henchel. In Jack's first fight, he took on Queney and appeared to be a little outmatched in every area. I didn't think too much about him after that fight, as it was my first time seeing him. When he came out in the second fight, it was like I saw an entirely different fighter. Lightning quick hands, light as a feather on his feet and bags full of confidence, Jack feels comfortable almost everywhere the fight goes. I don't know if Ross is just that good or if Jack had a slow start to the weekend, but he ended on a major high and looked like an amateur that could prove to be trouble for almost anyone he comes up against. Tommy Horseman. Strong as an ox and just a junior competitor, Tommy Horseman was explosive in every single action he took. He'd slam opponents to the ground, land big ground and pound wherever possible, and if you give him a second's notice, he can snatch your arm up in an instant. Tommy is admittedly quite young into his career and probably rushes into some actions, but when you can run through everybody that they put in front of you with a furious blitz of punches, takedowns and submissions, why even bother slowing down? Jack Levy. Jack Levy might be the most one-dimensional fighter in the competition. He might also be the most multi-dimensional. I really have got no idea. Usually when I add fighters to a list, I do so because they've shown me a bit of everything, but Jack couldn't care less about showing his whole game. The 18-year-old walked out, took opponents down and submitted them, and then headed into the back without breaking a sweat. As one of the youngest in the entire competition, Jack maybe would have benefited from a few more rounds in there, but you can't really fault him for being just too good at jiu-jitsu for opponents to test him. Jack Humphreys. Although he might look like he represents Dagestan, Jack Humphreys came into this tournament as an Englishman with only a few fights under his belt, but when you're as strong as this, especially at the junior level, experience isn't necessary, as Jack was able to bulldoze through opponents with unrelenting wrestling, unrivaled strength and unstoppable chokes. If Jack looks this powerful as a junior, what's he going to be like a few years down the line? Logan McGlynn. In his first round fight, Scotland's Logan McGlynn showed himself to be on a completely different level to almost anybody else in the competition. He kept the fight standing, had an educated jab that many on the professional scene would be happy to have, and built on his striking as the competition progressed. Although he did get finished by Queney, it did feel like he just got caught, and with his offense as sharp as it is, Logan has now been taught a good lesson in the importance of defense, and I'd expect him to work on that and come back better in his next few fights. Every fighter takes their first loss sometime. For Logan, it's better that it came now, so he can make adjustments and come back stronger later. Kunal Lawal. I'm actually a little ashamed of myself that I'd not heard of Kunal Lawal before this competition, but I certainly do now. Entering the tournament against perhaps the biggest favourite across every weight class, Kunal disposed of Teddy Stringer after engaging with the Englishman in his own realm of striking. Kunal showed some fantastic diversity in his game, and his top performances earned him a bonus as the fighter of the competition. There's bright things ahead for Lawal, who desperately needed this as he came into the competition on a 4-fight losing streak. Yeah, we don't count Wes O'Neill on this channel. Rowan Crocker. You would have never thought that Crocker was just 22 years old after these performances. The Cage Warriors Academy Wales champion showed an elite ground game that let him smother opponents, taking the undefeated records of Sean Clancy Jr. and Joe Ambler on his journey. Opponents didn't even get a shot off on him, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he can bring these skills to the international level. Rowan was the 2018 IMMAF Junior European champion, but after losing in the first round of the 2019 competition, Rowan has not been seen back in the organisation's ranks. If he returns now that he's grown into his 20s, I think Rowan could have the potential to knock off a few of the top names. Solomon Simon. This is what I considered to be the most professional performance of the entire tournament. Solomon had composure to his grappling that stood out from the pack. While others were desperate to advance position or chase down submissions as soon as possible, Solomon scored his early takedowns and exerted expert control and didn't give his opponents any opportunity to capitalise on position. Simon is a veteran of the amateur scene, fighting in 3 IMMAF competitions as well as the recent Irish National Championships, but performances in the Four Nations tournament might be his best to date, and I think these improvements will serve him exponentially going forward. Ross Queney. If you look at his amateur record, Ross Queney might not seem like the most logical choice for the top pick. At 6-7 on a 5-fight losing streak entering the tournament, Ross didn't seem like a clear standout. However, his performances were absolutely spectacular and I can't justify not putting him on the top spot. With power that is rarely seen in amateur gloves, Ross was able to hurt opponents with his hands before showing some slick grappling to latch on to quick submissions. Not many fighters throughout the competition looked good in multiple areas, and Ross not only did that but looked like a legitimate finisher at the same time. When you dig a little deeper into his record, it contains losses to amateur stars like Gary Rooney and Jamie Abbott-Bissett, so this tournament might set up Ross to become the next top contender on the Irish amateur scene. Know of any other names you'd have added to the list? Drop them in the comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more amateur MMA content.